Hey guys, thought I'd shoot another video. I'm still near Halifax. Decided to stay a few days because there's just kind of so much in the area. But right now I am just south, about an hour away from Halifax, and I'm going to Lunenburg, I believe is how you say it. Lunenburg is I guess where the Bluenose II is. Again, I guess most of my viewers are American, or at least most of the people that click on it are American. If you don't know, the Bluenose is like it's a famous icon of Canadian culture, I guess. You know, it's on one of our infamous heritage moments that were on TV back in the day, and with the bad cheesy acting, which I'm pretty sure was just a excuse to give Vancouver actors something to do. You don't. You know what, I tell you the truth, I don't know a whole lot about the Bluenose. I just know, I think it was like it's a famous racing schooner from like turn of the century. And it was pretty much, I can't remember if it was like undefeated or something ridiculous, but I know it just won a lot of races and was famous for being a fast boat. So I guess I should have looked that up on Wikipedia before I left, but you know, feel free to look it up yourself. I didn't know the first one actually was sold and sunk by some merchant in like the Caribbean or something, so it's gone. But the one I'm going to see is a replica, I think made by the government, I don't know, and it's pretty famous. I think it's almost an exact duplicate, other than maybe a few things, obviously. Hopefully it's there, because I don't know if it's there all the time. It says it's only the beginning of the tourist season. A lot of things aren't always out. For instance, when I was in Seattle, a lot of the famous boats were under wraps, like literally under a big giant tarp, and you couldn't really see anything. They were closed off the people. And actually, when I was in Boston, the Constitution was in dry dock and taken apart mostly, so I was like kind of disappointed. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. The other funny thing is, you know, since I've hit New Brunswick, it's all the history stuff has changed, because you know, through the Smithsonian and through Boston, you always come up across the War of 1812, which is a famous war, and it's always kind of, well, not really a famous war, it's almost a forgotten one, I guess, but for Americans. Though you guys, I've noticed you guys have been celebrating it a little bit more, because it is the war that started the flag, I think, or no, not the flag, the of course not the flag, the national anthem. The American national anthem comes from one of the famous battles of the War of 1812. And the Canadians got a hard-on for 1812 because I think that's the only time we ever fought the States in a war, and by our point of view, we won, because the States couldn't take Canada and they had to withdraw because Britain was about to invade the rest of the States. And of course, if you don't know, that war ended up being a draw, though I think Americans think they won it because they won the last battle, which was New Orleans. But the funny part is the treaty was signed in Paris or somewhere in Europe. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think a few weeks before the Battle of New Orleans, or a few days before the Battle of New Orleans kicked off, and just being, you know, the way people communicated back then, the treaty had already stated that things were to basically return to exactly the way the things were before the war kicked off. But then, recently when Harper was in power, that was a Conservative Party leader, or Conservative Party was in power for a while. I know you don't pay attention to Canadian politics, but bear with me. They were really putting it out there, really spending a lot of money on, history tours of stuff from about the 1812 and stuff like that, and kind of pushing the narrative. There's I guess a kind of a narrative that the War of 1812 is Canada's. Since I heard people call it Canada's equivalent to the American Revolution, I don't really think that's true. But it's the, I guess it's the confirmation that we, as a loyalists and all that, it was confirmation that we wanted to stay with Britain and all this stuff, and didn't want to be part of the Republic of the United States and all that. So it's kind of, we've woven in there, but most Canadians simply know it as that time we burnt down the White House, which isn't really true. It was mostly British that did that. Canadians helped out, but we did basically fight a decent campaign in Ontario, which would have been known as Upper Canada, or maybe Canada West. I can't remember. But yeah, enough of that. I'm still cruising Nova Scotia here. I'm doing that thing again, sorry. What else? Oh, Halifax. I guess I'll talk about Halifax. Halifax is freaking beautiful. Reminds me quite a bit of, and I think I mentioned this in the last video, of the town I went to called, for university, called Victoria in British Columbia, which is on the tip of our island, of Vancouver Island. And I went to UVic, which is, it's one of the medium schools in Canada. It's listed pretty high. And then here in Halifax, they have Dalhousie, which is a pretty old and famous college university. University now. So it's very much the same vibe. It's it's a university town. There's lots of students, lots of pubs. Halifax is way older. And they have buildings that date back to the 1700s. But Victoria is quite a bit. It's basically the oldest English settlement in the West. I think it should be. Well, it's way older. It should be older than Vancouver by a bit, because it was started by the Hudson's Bay in like the early 1800s as a fort, and it grew from there. It was actually kind of chosen as like a retiree spot for HBC guys, but I won't get into that. So there's a lot of old buildings dating mostly from the 1860s, 70s, 1880s. Is probably the biggest state for both Vic and Vancouver. And Halifax is like that too. Most of the buildings are mid to late 1800s. Mostly because, that's when wood, I guess, started to be used instead of brick quite often. So you got a lot of the same vibes, but Halifax definitely has an older vibe. I was touring it yesterday, and there's some really obvious 17th century or 1700 buildings, what's that, 18th century buildings that are just straight out of Pirates of the Caribbean and stuff like that. So definitely have that for you. Culturally a little different. You obviously have a lot more bagpipes. I'm not kidding when I say yesterday, I think everywhere I walked there's bagpipes everywhere. And of course, as you saw in the video, there's a gigantic citadel on the right in the middle of the downtown core, really, which is a giant historical spot. And Vic doesn't really have anything like that. I think there's a small World War II era one somewhere, which I never went to when I lived there, which is odd. should probably pull over. But yeah, not much. Oh, there was Royal Roads in Vic, so that was a big military college. It's now a civilian college. I should pull over and figure out what the fuck I'm doing. So this is Lunenburg. Let's see if I can find the Bluenose. Anyways, that's what I'm just trying to say. I guess they're very, very funny because they're both on opposite ends of the country and they give you the pretty similar vibes. But you know, I would say a lot more Scottish heritage here, and Irish heritage. Anyways, popular spot today, but it is Sunday, I think. Jesus. It's quite a downtown. Wonder if that's it. These houses are pretty sick though. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, that was cool. Went and saw the Bluenose. It's sitting there on the dock by the museum, getting ready to do its sailing tours. They got a fisherman's museum down there talking about, you know, halibut and the Bluenose history of both of them, the Bluenose I and Bluenose II. So I guess it won some famous races. It wasn't just winning races. And I guess back in the day they used to race their fishing schooners for pride. So I guess it won a pretty famous race that brought a major title back to Nova Scotia, and that kind of cemented it. And I guess that was 1930, so kind of the last schooner to kind of win this trophy, and before everything went to machine or you know, diesel engine and fiberglass boats. So I guess it's kind of the equivalent of winning a Canadian team winning the Stanley Cup finally, and then suddenly hockey just stopped existing. Let's go this way. Too young. And some cool houses though, cool buildings. Had some lobster poutine. Actually, I better check this is the right road. The roads aren't marked very well here. Other than that, you know, just the town has quite a colorful bunch of buildings. I think they're all like 1800, 1700 buildings. So, yeah, nice little town. Definitely check it out if you can.